I have a bomb, get everybody who has access codes to the safe together and put $250,000 into a bag and bring it to me. I think he said you have 15 minutes to do this.
Yeah, which kind of a long time if you're a bank robber.
It is. It's like almost like luxurious amount of time.
I would have said like 60 seconds.
Yeah, or this should have happened yesterday. Chop, chop.
Right.
So he stands back and waits, apparently grabs a dum-dum lollipop out of the little basket while he's waiting.
Because why not?
And the teller says, sir, we don't have, we can't get into the safe. That's just not how things work. I'm sorry. But as a consolation prize, I'm going to put $8,702 into a bag for you right here and send you on your way, okay?
Yeah, and importantly, we did not mention, he lifted his shirt up and showed this teller
right.
This bomb, this what's called a collar bomb, strapped around his neck.
Right. So he walks out of the bank, a free man. And the next time that he's seen in public is about 15 minutes later. And he's seen in public by some Pennsylvania state troopers who are on the lookout for this guy. And he's still wearing that shirt. He's still got the big bulge. And he's standing around his GeoMetro parked in a parking lot that is actually shared with that PNC Bank and a McDonald's. And he's in a parking lot right there. So basically, he left the bank robbery and went about 100 to 200 feet away from it. And that's where he was found like a full 15 minutes later.
Yeah, so these coppers, these troopers come over, and he says, "Hey guys, this is a bomb around my neck. A group of black men chained this bomb around my neck at gunpoint, forced me to rob this bank for them. I'm not lying here. This thing is gonna go off." So the cops call the bomb squad, and they do. I saw, the family of Wells is still angry about the fact that she says they did nothing to save them. But
I would be too.
By the way, we should shout out Wired Magazine.
Oh, yes, we really, really should.
A lot of this came from a great, heavily researched story by Rich Shapiro from about 8 years ago called The Incredible True Story of the Collar Bomb Heist.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Rich, for your work. But the dude's on the ground. I kind of remember this happening because when I went and looked at the still images, I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this footage.
Right. Yeah.
And it's this guy sitting on the ground with this thing around his neck, kind of just waiting, seated on the pavement for about 25 minutes. He says very interestingly, like, did you call my boss at the pizza place?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden this bomb starts beeping fast, which is never a good sign. And when I was reading the story, I thought, well, that's just a ruse. But no, this thing detonated and killed him. It blasted a hole in his chest. It did not blow his head off like the internet says.
No.
But it was a violent, awful death. Yeah,
it was. And it was pretty quick. And then 3 minutes after the bomb goes off, the bomb squad showed up. So he's dead. This guy, Brian Wells, is dead. And the whole time he was protesting. He's like, I was forced to rob the bank. Are you guys going to get this off of me or what? He said something like, did you call my boss? Because apparently he was a very loyal employee. He'd been working at Mamma Mia's for how long? Like 10 years or something like that?
I don't
know. For years and years. And he'd only called in late once, not even sick, late once when his cat died, said Rich Shapiro in that Wired article. So it seemed like he actually was telling the truth, that he had been abducted and forced to rob the bank and then had been a victim. I think the bomb going off really kind of put an exclamation point on his story that he was not a willing participant in this, right?
Yeah, so the cops obviously check out that GeoMetro and its sweet, sweet styling, and they saw his cane in there. It turns out the reason why the cane was funny looking is because it was also a gun.
And it really looks a lot like a gun.
Yeah, when you look at it. The bomb was clearly homemade. It had a couple of different parts to it. It was this banded metal collar that he wore around his neck. It was like locked to his neck, had 4 keyholes, and then a combination lock.
Yeah, it was really locked to his neck.
And then an iron box with 2 pipe bombs loaded up, ready to go. And then, interestingly, and this will figure, put a pin in this one because this will figure in the case later. It had 2 kitchen timers in there, in addition to an electronic countdown timer.
Yeah, which was, I guess, the thing that started beeping faster and faster.
Yeah, and then some decoy wires. You always got to have those if you're making a bomb.
Sure, but I mean, like, that's pretty smart. So there's decoy wires. There were apparently also stickers that said, like, don't do it, or, skull and crossbones, or rat poison, whatever.
Skinny and sweet.
Yeah. And, that's a good 9 to 5 reference, man.
I just saw that the other night.
So it was a homemade bomb, but it was, by all accounts, a well-made bomb, too. And it worked, which I think is one of the big questions about any homemade bomb, is whether it will actually work or not. And this one worked with deadly effect.
That's right. So the most important thing they found in this car, though, were some letters, some handwritten notes addressed to bomb hostage. So one of them said, these were instructions basically on what this guy should do, which further kind of cemented, like, hey, this guy's probably telling the truth. It said, go rob this bank of $250,000. And then, very strangely, outlined this little scavenger hunt, basically, to where eventually you will land upon the keys and combination to get you out of this thing by going all over town and finding these various hidden notes. And at the last note, you will be able to free yourself.
Yeah, the last one will give you the keys and the combination, but you better hurry because you have a limited amount of time. If you stop and think, you're going to waste time and you're going to die. We can detonate this remotely and we're going to be following you. It was written pretty crazily. Have you read any of the note?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, it's got a lot of, a lot of jump cuts or jump scares in it, like it's like, go do this and then go do that after that, and then don't try anything funny or we're going to blow you up,
Yeah.
It has those every once in a while. And there's drawings in there of where he could find like the notes and all that. So that he made it as far as the first note, which was McDonald's. It was in that McDonald's that shared a parking lot with the PNC Bank. That was where the first note was. So he made it to that McDonald's, grabbed that note, and that note was directing him out of town to another note, and he didn't make it that far, but when the cops caught up with him.
Yeah, so the scavenger hunt was, like you said, he had gotten just to the one place. So the cops then say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to complete the scavenger hunt.
They were like, whoa, you just blew my mind. That's some great policing.
Should we take a break?
Sure.
All right. Scavenger hunt has just started by the Copas. We'll be right back.
You're a details person, checking reviews, reading nutritional info, even terms and conditions. So when donating, check out GiveWell, an independent resource offering rigorous, transparent research on top of giving opportunities. Their recent analysis of cash transfers in Africa includes over 300 footnotes, perfect for meticulous readers. For 17 years, GiveWell has researched charities directing funding to the highest impact options. Over 125,000 donors have used GiveWell to contribute more than $2 billion, saving an estimated 200,000 lives. GiveWell's research is free, helping donors make informed decisions. Donations to recommended funds are tax-deductible, and GiveWell takes no cut. If you've never used GiveWell to donate, you can have your donation matched up to $100 before the end of the year or as long as matching funds last. To claim your match, go to givewell.org and pick Podcast and enter Stuff You Should Know at checkout. Make sure they know that you heard about GiveWell from Stuff You Should Know to get your donation matched. Again, that's givewell.org to donate or find out more.
Hey everybody, it's Chuck and Josh here to talk to you about Squarespace. Squarespace makes it easy to build the website of your dreams and do whatever you like with it.
That's right. They make it really easy to sell access to content on your websites like online courses, blogs, videos, and memberships. You can earn recurring revenue by gating your content behind a paywall even. Simply set the price and choose whether to charge a one-time fee or subscription for access.
Yeah, and when it's time to collect that money, Squarespace offers an easier way to collect payments so you can focus on growing your business. You can invoice clients and get paid for your services, turn leads into clients with proposals, estimates, and contracts, and simplify your workflow and manage your service business on one platform. What else could you possibly ask for?
That's right. Just go to squarespace.com/stuff for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use offer code STUFF to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain.
From Amir Questlove Thompson, the Academy Award-winning director of Summer of Soul, don't miss the new Hulu original documentary, Sly Lives, a.k.a. The Burden of Black Genius. Dance to the music, everyday people, family affair. You know Sly Stone's music, but do you know his story? With his groundbreaking band Sly and the Family Stone, Sly Stone made some of the most enduring pop music of his or any era. This new film captures the rise, reign, and subsequent fade out of one of pop music's most influential artists, but also shines a light on how Black artists in America navigate the unseen burden that comes with their success. Questlove tells an empathetic, human story about the cost of genius, reframing the way we all engage with pop culture, featuring interviews with Andre 3000, Q-Tip, Shaka Khan, and more. Sly Lives, a.k.a. The Burden of Black Genius, is now streaming on Hulu.
If you're driving right now, look around. I'll wait. All those cars you see, they're all probably on autotrader.com.
That's right. That's because AutoTrader has the largest selection of new cars, used cars, electric cars, even flying cars. Well, actually not flying cars yet, but as soon as those get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader.
AutoTrader's been attracting car shoppers for years now, and for good reason. Not only do they have supercharged search features that allow you to easily find your perfect car, AutoTrader has Kelley Blue Book My Wallet. From credit scores to down payments to interest rates, we all know that car buying requires a lot of math, so enter My Wallet on AutoTrader.
That's right. It's a tool that helps you know exactly how much you'll pay each month for your car, so you never have to do car math again. You're welcome. So whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends, or whether you just want something practical with no surprise costs, if you see a car you like, it's probably on AutoTrader. See it, find it. AutoTrader.
All right, we're back.
So the scavenger hunt's still on, Chuck.
Correct.
And they make it, the cops follow from the note that Brian Wells had to the next clue, and they found the next note, and that directed them to another place, even further out of town, to where they found the jar where the note was supposed to be, but the note was gone.
Yeah, and they don't really know what that means. They didn't know if it was just something to keep them busy, preoccupied. They didn't know if the person who was designing the scavenger hunt got interrupted or knew that the cops were around and they were doing it sort of in real time.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, unfortunately, the scavenger hunt just kind of fizzled out because that was kind of a cool part of the story.
Yeah, it really was. It was like, it's one of the things that makes this, it's just an incredibly bizarre crime.
Yeah.
Why the scavenger hunt? It's going to keep coming up again and again, right?
Yes.
So when the scavenger hunt ran out, the trail actually went cold. The case started to get cold for a few months. The cops sniffed around Brian Wells, tried to figure out, why him, what happened with him, and they went back to his place of employment, and they kind of checked out the kind of person he was, right?
Yeah, and they very smartly said, well, wait a minute, why don't we check out what that last delivery was supposed to be? There may be a clue there. And it was an interesting place. You could only get there by dirt road, and it was right next to a TV transmission tower in a kind of a remote wooded area.
Right.
And cops combed the area, found shoe prints that matched Wells. They found those classic, iconic Geo Metro tire tracks
Right.
that everyone recognizes by sight. But there really weren't any more clues as far as the cops were concerned at that location. So where the cops had found a dead end, a reporter and photographer for the Erie Times News went and did a little investigating of his own and saw this house, next door where the pizza was delivered and said, well, I'm just going to go knock on the door.
Mhm.
This guy answers the door, and his name was Bill Rothstein. And he actually said, you can look around if you want. He's 59 years old. He's a handyman, wasn't married, had lived there his whole life. And apparently he seemed really smart, had a very articulate way of speaking, and apparently was fluent in several different languages.
Mhm.
And the journalist kind of did a little poking around and didn't really see much and took off. But he made contact with Bill Rothstein. He's the first person that kind of went a knocking.
Right. But nothing came of it. And the cops, as far as I know, never went and met with Bill Rothstein, even though his house was right next to the delivery place where Wells was supposedly accosted, right?
Yeah.
And then like I said, the case has gone cold by this time. If a couple months have gone by, I mean, you've got this crime, this very public caper that's captured the public's attention. A guy died by being blown up while under police supervision, and there's no leads, there's no nothing. And then finally, several weeks, a few months, I think, after the call, there's a 911 call from Bill Rothstein. And he tells the police that in his freezer, he has one of those serial killer chest freezers, there's actually a body, a man's body. And that it was, it is not someone he murdered, but he helped cover up the murder of this man who was the boyfriend of Bill Rothstein's ex-girlfriend from way, way back in the day. And now the chain of events has been set off.
Right. And if you're like me and you start hearing wife of the ex-girlfriend's dad's cousin, your brain gets a little jumbled.
Mm-hmm.
So just very plainly, he used to date this woman. This woman called him up and said, "Hey, I've murdered my current boyfriend," or was it her husband?
It was her boyfriend, yeah.
And she said, "And I need your help here. I blasted him with a shotgun, and I know we dated, 20 years ago, but will you come help me out?" Because they were still in contact, I guess. They remained friends.
I guess so.
And this racked Bill Rothstein, apparently. He thought about committing suicide, apparently. There was even a note they found,
Mm-hmm.
a suicide note. But he maintained, like you said with the cops, that he didn't have anything to do with anything but most of the cleanup.
The cleanup, getting rid of the murder weapon, and then holding on to the body.
Yeah, but which the reason he held on the body, he was supposed to grind this body up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he finally stopped short and was like, Jesus, I can't do this.
And he told the cops that the reason he called them finally was because since he wasn't going through with grinding up the body, he was worried what this woman, Marjorie Deal Armstrong, was going to do to him.
He's like,
next.
I dated this lady.
Right.
She's not a nice person.
And so when he says Marjorie Deal Armstrong to the Erie cops, just alarm bells start going off, because by this time already, Marjorie Deal Armstrong was a local legend as far as criminals are concerned. She was this very, very bright woman who, I think at the age of 35, back in the 80s, had been indicted for killing one of her boyfriends. She shot him 6 times. She played that she had killed him in self-defense, that he was an abuser of her, and she was actually acquitted. A few years after that, she was married to a guy named Armstrong, and he showed up at the hospital with a head trauma and actually died of a cerebral hemorrhage. But there was no coroner's inquest or anything like that. And so it just was something suspicious, the second significant other of this woman to die under suspicious or violent circumstances. So when Bill Rothstein said, "I'm worried about what Marjorie Deal Armstrong's going to do to me," the cops seem to have taken it very seriously.
Well, extremely seriously, because the next day they arrested her.
That's pretty serious.
For murder. And about a year and a half later, a little short of that, she pled guilty, but mentally ill. She was sentenced to 7 to 20. And then Rothstein, for his part, eventually died of cancer in 2004.
Right. And so you said that he had considered killing himself and even wrote a suicide note, right?
Yeah.
There's something very, very odd on Bill Rothstein's suicide note. And again, he didn't kill himself. He died of cancer, but he was able to actually show the cops where his suicide note was, and they read it. And the first line of it, from what I understand, was, This has nothing to do with the collar bomb heist or the Brian Wells murder.
Yeah, that's it's a weird thing to put if you had nothing to do with that, you know.
Right. That's just a very odd thing to do.
It's like when the cops come in and you go, "There's nothing under the bed. Don't there's no reason to look there."
Right. They said, we just want to make sure your fire alarm is working.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of a community service.
Cool, but the bed's fine.
Right. So that is a very weird thing to say, and that definitely piqued the interest of the cops. But like you said, the cops convicted, or the state convicted Marjorie Deal Armstrong of the murder of James Roden, or Jim Roden, right?
Yeah.
She's already in prison. And when she's in prison, somehow, this is what I'm unclear on. Somehow it comes up, or she starts talking, or something like that, that Jim Roden's death very much had to do with the Wells case, with Brian Wells' murder, this collar bomb heist, and that she knows a lot about it. And if they'll transfer her to a minimum security prison close to Erie, she'll start talking.
Yeah, she asked for the old Hannibal Lecter treatment.
So is that how it came up? Like she approached them? Because I'm unclear on that.
I mean, I think so. This is in the Wired article. It said that that there was a phone call from a state cop who had just met with her about something unrelated, like a different homicide. And she just, and it kind of makes sense though now, actually, as we will learn, she talked a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
So it doesn't surprise me that another cop was just meeting with her about something unrelated. She's like, by the way, that whole collar bomb thing, I got all the skinny on that.
Right. So there's a couple of things going on here by then. By the time she calls the cops have already spoken apparently with several informants that have shared cells with her or spent time with her in jail already, who are saying like, this lady is the mastermind of that collar bomb heist that's making you guys look bad.
Yeah, and eventually, when they met with her about this, she admitted that she was involved, but she didn't admit she was involved in the plot, but she said, I knew about it. I gave him those 2 kitchen timers. Mm-hmm. And I was really close by when it happened. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the guy who blew up with the collar bomb, Mr. Wells, he was actually in on it too. And Rothstein headed the whole thing up. Right.
But for her Deal Armstrong, she said, but I had nothing to do with it. Even though I had all these other little things to do with it, I never met Brian Wells. I didn't know Brian Wells. I had nothing to do with his death, aside from supplying the kitchen timers.
And knowing all about it.
Right, exactly. So now it's just getting weird, right? Because there's the Jim Roden murder, who she says that she killed because he was abusing her, who Rothstein said she killed over a dispute with money. Mm-hmm. But she's saying is tied to the Wells case, and which she knows a lot about, but really nothing about and had nothing to do with. So the cops are like, well, let's just get this lady to talk all we can. And one of the things they got out of her was she agreed to a tour around Erie, showing them all these places where she had been. And these were all places that were related to the crime. Like, I believe she said she'd been at the pizza delivery site. I think she said she'd been within a mile of the bank when it was robbed. Like, all of this stuff, she's just like, they just keep giving her this rope, and she's just wrapping it around her neck again and again and again. And then finally, Chuck, at the end of this car ride, after she's been interviewing with the cops multiple times, giving them tons of info, what does she say?
She asked for immunity at this point, after she had basically completely incriminated herself. Mm-hmm. And previous to all this, a lot more happened. There were 4 different informants who had come forward and said that this lady's been talking about this for a while. Right. She very much had everything to do with it. And then a couple of months after she had started talking to the feds, another big break came. This witness came forward and said, hey, there's this crack dealer named Kenny Barnes.
That is a crack dealer's name.
Kenneth Barnes. And he was involved. They used to go fishing together, Deal Armstrong and Barnes. Mm-hmm. And she sang like a canary to him, basically. and said, here's what she did. Her brother-in-law put him in touch with Barnes while he was already in jail on unrelated charges, basically. And so Barnes was already in prison, said, hey, I think I can shorten my time. So I'm going to try and get a reduced sentence at least by spilling the beans on Deal Armstrong.
Right. And Barnes's brother-in-law was who turned him into the cops.
Oh, yeah.
So Barnes is like, I'm in jail for selling crack. That's way different from being, very much involved in this collar bomb heist. So he said, okay, I'll tell you guys everything you want to know. I'll be your star witness. Just reduce my sentence for my involvement in this. And he started talking. When he started talking, it was at Marjorie Deal Armstrong's trial, which was a pretty spectacular trial from all accounts.
Yeah, and before the trial even, he told his story is that she wanted me to kill her father. He was spending what would end up being her inheritance, she felt, and so she wanted him dead. And so she was doing this collar bomb heist to raise money to pay me to kill her dad.
Which, I mean, like, that's just the biggest facepalm I've ever heard of.
Yeah, for real.
So, okay, we'll start Marjorie Deal Armstrong's trial after we take a break. How about that, man?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. So, when you get asked, what is Odoo, what comes to mind? Well, I'll tell you, Odoo is a bit of everything. Odoo is a suite of business management software that some people say is like fertilizer because of the way it promotes growth. But, some people also say that Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable.
Ooh. But then again, you could look at Odoo in terms of how its individual software programs are a lot like building blocks. Whatever your business needs, manufacturing, accounting, HR programs, you can build a custom software suite that's perfect for your company. So what is Odoo? Well, Odoo is a bit of everything. Odoo is a fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. Yeah, that's it.
Which means that Odoo is exactly what every business needs. Learn more and sign up now at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
From Amir Questlove Thompson, the Academy Award-winning director of Summer of Soul, don't miss the new Hulu original documentary Sly Lives, a.k.a. The Burden of Black Genius. Dance to the music, everyday people, family affair. You know Sly Stone's music, but do you know his story? With his groundbreaking band Sly and the Family Stone, Sly Stone made some of the most enduring pop music of his or any era. This new film captures the rise, reign, and subsequent fade out of one of pop music's most influential artists, but also shines a light on how Black artists in America navigate the unseen burden that comes with their success. Questlove tells an empathetic, human story about the cost of genius, reframing the way we all engage with pop culture, featuring interviews with Andre 3000, Q-Tip, Shaka Khan, and more. Sly Lives, a.k.a. The Burden of Black Genius, is now streaming on Hulu.
If you're driving right now, look around. I'll wait. All those cars you see, they're all probably on autotrader.com.
That's right. That's because AutoTrader has the largest selection of new cars, used cars, electric cars, even flying cars. Well, actually not flying cars yet, but as soon as those get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader.
AutoTrader's been attracting car shoppers for years now, and for good reason. Not only do they have supercharged search features that allow you to easily find your perfect car, AutoTrader has Kelley Blue Book My Wallet. From credit scores to down payments to interest rates, we all know that car buying requires a lot of math, so enter My Wallet on AutoTrader.
That's right. It's a tool that helps you know exactly how much you'll pay each month for your car, so you never have to do car math again. You're welcome. So whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends, or whether you just want something practical with no surprise costs, if you see a car you like, it's probably on AutoTrader. See it, find it. AutoTrader.
Well, it's officially too cold to do anything, Chuck, but The upside is that you can cocoon yourself in Bombas socks, slippers, and underwear all winter long.
That's right. I love my Bombas socks. They are super cozy, and the secret is in their fabrics. We're talking about the really good stuff like merino wool, which feels as cozy as a ski lodge. But if you want to brave the cold on the slopes or on a snowy run, Bombas has athletic socks built for that too.
Yeah, and Bombas knows that the little things really do make a big difference, so they removed all the itchy tags, fixed the annoying toe seam, and perfected the fit of everything. No more socks that slip down or underwear that rides up, just perfect comfort.
That's right, and if you get cold feet, then you got to try those slippers that they have. They're warm because they have that fluffy Sherpa lining and the marshmallow-like cushioning. Really good stuff.
So try Bombas now. Head over to bombas.com/SYSK and use code SYSK for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/SYSK, code SYSK at checkout. Okay, Chuck. So before Marjorie Deal Armstrong goes to trial, and remember, she's already in prison for the murder of Jim Roden, right? Shooting him in the back with a 12-gauge shotgun.
Yes.
Bill Rothstein is dead. I want to call him Ace Rothstein so bad. But Bill Rothstein is dead. He died of lymphoma a couple of years before. And by the time Marjorie Deal Armstrong is brought to trial for her involvement as the mastermind of the collar bomb plot, they have to verify that she's actually mentally competent to stand trial, and that's kind of touchy, because remember when she was charged with killing her boyfriend back in, I think, 1984 or 1986.
Yeah.
She was deemed incompetent 7 times by psychiatrists before the judge finally said, I'm throwing all that out and deciding that she is competent. We're going to go ahead with the trial.
Yes.
They also found like 400 pounds of butter and 700 pounds of cheese in her house when they were investigating that particular murder.
A little strange.
And in between 1984 and the time she was tried in the collar bomb heist, she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So it was actually kind of questionable whether she was mentally competent to stand trial. And right as they were about to start the proceedings, I think the judge ruled that she was competent to stand trial. She was diagnosed with cancer herself.
That's right.
So they waited for the cancer diagnosis, her prognosis. And the cancer doctor came back and said 3 to 7 years. And the prosecutor said, giddy up.
That's right. So previous to this, she had gotten the indictment, but in that indictment, it's very important that she was not, I mean, granted, she was the only one technically indicted, but in the indictment, it said that Rothstein was definitely a conspirator, and Wells, the man who was the victim, supposedly, he was definitely involved in this thing from the beginning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is a very important thing that showed up in this indictment.
Yeah, they said he agreed to rob this bank. He thought it was a fake bomb. And he was told this scavenger hunt was a ruse to fool the cops. And if and when he did get caught, he could say, I was just following orders, basically what he did.
Right. And so Brian Wells' family did not like this at all. Apparently, during the press conference where the DA of Erie County is announcing this, this case is closed. This is the indictment that they have. Some of Brian Wells' sisters were shouting liar at her. They did not take the idea that their brother was an accomplice in this at all very well.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of back and forth about whether Wells was in on the thing from the beginning.
Yeah.
Or whether or not he was in from the beginning and then at one point wanted out and was forced to do this, or whether he was forced from the beginning. Everyone's telling a different story. And, basically the trial is where we will learn, if all that is true, what really happened.
So Marjorie Deal Armstrong's lawyers said, to heck with caution. Let's put you on the stand, okay? You've already incriminated yourself multiple times. Why not do it in open court too? And she apparently was quite a she put on quite a performance on the stand over like 2 days. I think 5.5 hours of testimony. She yelled, she cried, she berated the prosecutor and her own lawyer. When she did mention Brian Wells, she said, "I've never met the guy. I learned of his death when everybody else did on the TV news." And she stuck with her story, though, that she had nothing to do with this. She knew a little bit about it. She knew the conspirators. The real mastermind was Bill Rothstein, and it wasn't her. That's what she maintained, though, throughout the trial and even afterward.
That's right. But before she took the stand, a few days earlier, is when they trotted out Ken Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the stand, and he said he had, by the time she took the stand, he had given a different account of the story than she would later do. So he got up there and said she was behind all this. She was the mastermind. Rothstein was involved.
Mm-hmm.
She just recruited him, basically. She recruited Wells because Wells needed money. And here's where the prostitutes come into play. Apparently, Wells had a relationship with a prostitute who was also a crack addict. So he would buy crack to give her, presumably as trade for sex. He ended up falling into debt with these crack dealers and needed money.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's basically the plot of Moulin Rouge.
And he contends, Barnes did, that up until the day of the crime, Wells was thought this whole thing was fake, realized that it was a double cross, it was a real bomb, and he tried to run away
Mm-hmm.
and was tackled, and they put a gun to his head and locked him into this device.
So imagine this, Chuck. Imagine being Brian Wells, and you're agreeing to put on what you are presuming is a fake collar bomb to go carry out a real bank robbery because you need money, because you're indebted to crack dealers because you borrowed crack from them to give to your girlfriend who's a prostitute who you have to give crack to be with. And then you find out on the day of that this is a real bomb and they're putting it on you whether you like it or not. What a horrible turn of events for this poor guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just so sad, no matter how you slice it. And